All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I have this meeting recording, so we will be able to revisit this. We'll send it out, and it can be used for anyone who wasn't able to attend as well. If you're not on mute, if you wouldn't mind adding yourself to mute if you're on the phone, and we will open it up for questions once we get through the training. All right, so right now you should be able to see my screen, and I'm displaying the dashboard for the phishing site. Right now we don't have any data in here, which is exactly what yours will look like, because similarly, we need to get things moving and get started.
Ask for it, do it. I don't know if they just
Is everyone able to see the screen okay? Okay, sorry, I thought I heard someone for a second. All right, so the first thing you're going to need to do is add your targets. To do that, you'll click on targets in the upper navigation bar, and then over to the right, you'll use the bulk import option. And when we click bulk import, it opens up this window where we have the ability to download the template. So more than likely, you'll download the template first, and you'll work with that to make the file ready to import. So I'm going to walk through a sample of how to do that. You can click download CSV Import Template example, and it will download that template to your local drive. Right. So I'm opening up the CSV file that I just downloaded from the template. I'm going to drag this over and then just confirm that it's sharing all right. Okay, so now you should be seeing the spreadsheet that you're able to download from the template. And we have some sample information here. These are the 4 different fields that you need to populate: email, first name and last name. And group name is actually up to you. It depends on how you need to group your targets. The value in grouping your targets is the ability to create a campaign and then not have to do an additional import or any additional user separation. You can just say group A goes to this campaign, and it'll pull in all of those users for you. You do not have to create the groups first. You can put the name that you want the group to have in the spreadsheet here. And when we do the import, it will create the group and add the user to it. If the group had already been created, then it would just add the user to the group rather than create a duplicate group. The other note I want you to remember about this template is the row 1 with the column headers must be exactly as it is in the template. So we don't want to change anything in this first row because the import connector looks for these specific text values. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this file so that I can import it into the phishing simulator. I'll reshare my screen. Okay, so now we should be looking again at the pop-out window when we're doing the bulk import for phishing targets. The next thing that I need to do is upload the file that I just modified. So I'll click Choose File. And then from my downloads, I'm just going to locate that one. And then select the file. I want to leave this box checked. That first row is a header. And then I just click Add Targets. So the next page asks us to confirm the import. It lets us know that the data will make the following changes. So you can see 2 targets are being created and 2 groups are being created. We can choose to cancel at this point, but everything looks as expected. So we will continue with the import. Okay, and then we'll get this message. Your targets are being imported. You will receive an email when the import is complete, and that email goes to the email address that you're logged in under. Additionally, you should see those targets in the system as well as the groups that you created. Under the targets page, in addition to being able to do a bulk import here, you can add a target individually if needed. That's pretty straightforward. You just type in their information. If you want to add them to a group, then you can type in which group they go to and click Save Target. Similarly, you can add a group manually. Instead of using the import file, you just type in the name and click Add Group. So we have 2 targets in here, and we can see which groups they're listed in. On the targets page, you can also manage your groups, and this is a sub-tab on the targets page to the right of targets. So here I can see group 1, group 2, and the number of targets. Anywhere that we can hover over and there's a link, it'll just go to a deeper level. So when I click on group 2, I'm able to manage the targets within that group as needed. All right. So this is all there is to cover with targets. I want to go ahead and pause for questions on targets. We'll do that for the next 8 minutes. So if anybody has a question about targets, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
So can you explain targets? What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the targets are the recipients of the emails you're going to send out. So the phishing campaign consists of a few different things. One of those are targets. Those are the people that we're trying to phish. We're trying to catch them or educate them about phishing. The templates are the second piece, and that's the body of the emails, the phishing links that we put in there, and there's the schedule. So when is that campaign going to go out? And then there's also landing pages. So if one of your targets clicks on a phishing link in a template, what are they going to see? That's what we call the landing page. So targets are the people who are at the receiving end of the phishing campaign. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, we're good.
Any other questions? See, I've got one in the chat here. Okay, this one earlier. Okay,
are you
great.
able to do any directory integration?
Yes, you can do an Ldap Sync. We have documentation on that we can send out. It's optional. When it's enabled, it'll just be over here on the right, and you can just click Sync, and it will sync with your Active Directory once you, of course, have the connector in place. All right, so let's move on to templates.
Oh, one quick question. Does it remove users that are not in the import when you do a re-import?
It does not. It will make them inactive, but it will not remove them.
Oh, at least they're inactive, so it won't send emails to inactive users.
Right, right. And this is another good question that came in the chat. Are we limited to a maximum number of targets? The number of targets that we're putting on, you're not necessarily limited, but it is licensed by number of targets. So the number that you provide for number of participants to JSON is the number that we are setting your site up with. So if we need to make an adjustment to that number, just submit it into the Google form for questions, and we'll make sure that that number gets adjusted for you. You can see the number of targets that are allotted to your account on the dashboard under licenses used here. So you can see this training site that we're in is licensed for 300. So if that number is not accurate for you, just let us know and we can update it. All right. And I'm also keeping note here of the items to send out to you all. So the Ldap Sync documentation will get sent out along with whitelisting information and support documentation. All right. And we'll make sure that the Google form is sent out. That Jason put that together for us. So if you haven't received that yet or aren't quite sure how to use it, oh, there we go. Thanks, Jason. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to move on to templates. If we have questions about targets, we can go back to those at the end. All right, so under templates, we are updating these every month. We push out new templates. You'll see right now there's 225 different MediaPro phishing templates. So that'll keep us busy for a while. Additionally, when you create your own in here, that bumps the number up as well. The best way to indicate if it's a MediaPro template or something you've created yourself is under this library category, this library section. If there's a check mark, then it's a MediaPro template. So if you want to use one of these templates, you can duplicate it. And before you use it, you might want to preview it and see what that looks like. And you can use this little eyeball here to open up a preview. And if we want to use this, it's as simple as duplicating it with the icon above the eyeball. So I'm going to duplicate this template. And it's taken me into the Edit Template page. And you can see it's added copy of to the beginning of this template. And the reason for that is we cannot replace or alter the MediaPro default templates. We can only make a copy of them and then modify them, or we can create our own from scratch. So with that, it's important to put any sort of naming convention that you might want on templates you're thinking of using in your campaign. You can place those in the name of it. So I'll just put test. Similarly, you can create email categories and use our email categories to classify what type of template you are using. And it's really what is the subject content revolve around. And this is visible in reporting. So if you wanted to see, okay, how many education-themed templates have I used versus how many government-themed templates I've used, if that's a kind of metric that you're going to want to know at the end, then you might want to think about what categories you want to create for emails before you get started. The next field under editing an email template is the email complexity. So when we put these in, they'll have a default description of low, medium, or high. And this refers to the number of elements that indicate it could be a phishing attack. So a low complexity might have 5 or 6 indications that it's a phishing attempt. It might include an urgent request for information. It might include a link to an unknown website, several different elements that would indicate this isn't something that the recipient should have received or should interact with. Medium is more like 2 to 4 elements, and then high would be 1 element or 2 at the most. And the benefit for there is similar to the email categories. If at the end you're going to want to see, okay, how are people performing across, easy templates, medium, or challenging, properly classifying these as you design the templates you want to use will give you the ability to have that information in reports later. The next field is phishing links appear to come from. So we all know when you hover over a link, it lets you know the URL that it takes you to. So for our phishing templates here, we'll actually modify the links down in the body, but for what we're going to see when we hover over those links, we use this field. So similarly, we have some default text here, but you're welcome to modify this to anything you might want it to be. The one exception in this field is you cannot use punctuation. So you can't use a period or an exclamation mark or special characters. The next item is the landing page. So this is the element of the campaign that if a person clicks on the link down here in the body of the email, this is what they're going to be presented with. So you can take a preview of the one that's included on the template. So we can see it has a high-level message, and then it digs in detail into that specific email and the things that they should have noticed. So if we wanted to change that, we can. We don't have to use the one that's associated with it. If you had another landing page in mind, you would click Select Landing Page, and it brings up the library right here. And you can search to locate any that you're planning to use instead. And then just check the little circle and click Select. You can see it will actually change which landing page we're using. We may want to preview that, make sure it still lines up. Looks good. So the next setting are the attachments. These are just text files that you could modify the name of it, as well as what the extension is on the end. There's no actual content within the files. Rather, it will be included in the email template. It will look like an attachment, but it will act more like a link, and it will report back to the tool that they opened the attachment. When they try to open it, they will be presented with the landing page. So let's say we wanted to attach this as a PDF and say that the invoice is attached. Let's see. Right. And since we've added an attachment, it would be good for us to refer to the attachment down in the body of the email. So we may say, so we can modify it just like that. And now when they receive it and they read this email, they'll see there's an invoice here. Maybe I should click on that. Hopefully they won't. Yeah. After you make changes, you'll need to save the template over on the right. And then you'll get a message saying template was successfully updated. When we scroll back down here, we take a look at the different options when you're modifying the way the email looks to the recipient. So what they're going to see are these bottom elements. Who's the email from? Who does it display from? You can modify these to be anything you want. So if you wanted to make it look like it's coming from yourself, you can. It's a free text field. So maybe we would do edu, proservices.com or something. In order to use the phishing links, our emails have them built in, but of course, if you wanted to build a template from scratch, you would be interested in adding a link to the template. That's using the phishing dropdown in the WYSIWYG editor here for the body of the email. So if I click on phishing, I have two options, link and image. When I click link, it's going to ask me just for the text to display. And the reason is the link itself is already a static field on the back end. We don't actually need you to modify the link because it's very specific in order to report back to the reporting tool. So all you need to do is put in the text to display for the phishing link. So let's say we accidentally deleted the one in the template. We could just create another one that easily. Similarly, if you wanted to do like a promotional template, promotional theme template, or otherwise use an image that you would ask them to click on it, you can do the same thing where you can say, okay, let me choose a file. And if you have one hosted at a public URL, you can also do that. It's one or the other. I've seen people do this for like spa packages is one. If you, it was a promotional thing for, you know, it's end of the year, we want to give you guys, you know, this discount on this massage thing, you know, just click on the image and it'll take you straight through to your special code. So if you wanted to encourage them to click on an image and specifically test out if they have that knowledge of don't click on an image when it asks you to, you can use the tool to insert an image and craft a message around that. The other one here that is unique to your traditional WYSIWYG editor is the ability to insert specific fields. This template already has these in here. So we have first name that will populate, last name, and target email. So anytime we click these, you'll see it'll just add another location for that into the body of the email. And the email it's going to populate is the email address of the target who's receiving it. The other thing to point out here is the ability to modify the HTML. And to do that, we have code view right here. So if you wanted to modify it in an HTML, you have the ability to do so. And when you're finished with your modifications, you would click out of code view and then scroll back up to save your changes. All right. So with this, I'm going to go back to templates and show you a few more things, and then we'll open it up for questions about the entire templates section. Now that we're back under templates, we can locate the email that we were working with by searching for it. And you can see it does not have a check under library, and we also have the ability to delete it. These are two things that differ from the MediaPro templates. We can't delete those, and they are listed as in the library. Similar to email templates, you can modify or create brand new landing pages. Landing pages are located as a sub-tab on the templates page. You can browse the MediaPro library, this search as well. And just like email templates, you have the ability to preview them and duplicate them. So let's say we want to preview this one. We have the option to do that. Let's see. These are two popular ones that match up with pretty much any email message rather than being specific to the email message that's created. So I'm just going to close these out. So you can see this would match up with pretty much any template you might put out. We have a few others that include educational videos that match up with any template. Let's say we want to use one of these. We'll just duplicate it over to the right. And there aren't as many fields for the landing page, so we'll be able to keep it brief with the options here. Really, you have two options. One is to use the content here that's in the body of the landing page, and the other option is to ignore the content and instead redirect to a URL of your choice. So you would want to put maybe it's an intranet page you want them to land on, maybe it's maybe it's a public article, whatever it is. If you want to have them land on something different than the content here, you can use this URL option. There aren't any special fields to add into the landing page, but you do have the ability to use code view and modify the HTML as needed. Similar to the email templates, save your changes if you've made any. And with that, I'm going to go back over to templates and point out the last piece. We touched on email categories when we were building the email template. They exist as a sub-tab under the templates page. The MediaPro templates are all already categorized. So you're welcome to use the MediaPro categories in addition to ones that you create yourself. So maybe this one is for teachers. We want to use any and then so now we have an email category that includes our template. There's no limit on how many templates you add to a single category, and there's no limit on how many categories you have. So with that, that's everything under templates. Let's open it up for questions.
I had a couple questions in there about grouping. If you could talk about if you should use buildings as groups, if that'll help you sort your data, you get back about who clicks on what, or what would you recommend for groups?
Sure. It really depends on what you're trying to get out of the tool. If you're not certain on how you want to split everybody up, then it's good to start with maybe a smaller group, maybe start with your IT department and fish them, get some feedback from them, and maybe the information from there will point you to more of how you want to split it out. The way that you want to think about it is by like job function is a good way to think of it, because you're going to craft messages that these people would likely receive if there was someone trying to social engineer them or trying to phish them. So we would do a different kind of email template for HR than we would for IT, because HR might click on a resume, might be more susceptible to that than IT. So really think about it by job function, and that's the best way to group things together. Does that help, Jason, or is there maybe another question there that we can discuss?
I think so. There's a couple more coming in there at the bottom about whether a single user can be in multiple groups, and if they can use the attributes in Ldap to create groups.
Okay. All right. Okay, I see those here. Okay. So groups can be a building name if that's the way you want to go about it. But job functions, the recommended route. A single user can be in an unlimited number of groups. There's no limit there. And with the Ldap, I'm not exactly sure on how the attributes work to create groups. I know there's something there, but I want to leave it to the documentation on that one, because I can't remember it off the top of my head. Okay, any other questions about templates? Okay, great. All right, so now we can move along and create a campaign. We'll go to campaigns, and we don't have anything here yet, but that's about to change. We'll click new campaign over on the right, and this brings up the information we need to fill in. So I recommend all of you to run at least one pilot. You'll find that there's frequently just little things you want to tweak to get it just right. And it's very common to run like up to 10 of them or up to 20 of them, just depending on, you know, how particular you are with exactly how you want the emails to appear. And the benefits to that is you can run it with a small group of 4 or 5 people and make sure that when they say, okay, I received the email, that the tool also says they received the email. When they click on a link, that the tool also says they clicked on the link, just to verify that information before you send it out to everyone, to make sure that we've whitelisted everything appropriately, or rather that your organization has, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you send out your campaign and you have a security suite that's maybe crawling the emails and saying people clicked when they didn't. So definitely plan to run a few pilots and make sure that you're able to verify that what you're putting forward is going to be the expected result before you launch your first live campaign. All right. And some of those things to test too are just, you know, if your template has an image, is the image coming through okay? It's not all about the reporting. All right, so the name is the only required field up here, but we do have to put in a schedule before we can modify the rest of the campaign. When you're putting a schedule on a campaign, you're not actually making it go live. You're just scheduling in advance. If I had a schedule in place, but I had not clicked launch, then it would just completely ignore this date. It would not start just because I have a date here. So let's say I want to start this on October 3rd, and I'd like to end it on October 5th. I need to clear my cache. There we go. All right. Turn off links. This is when it's going to stop reporting to the tool. So if you send the last email goes out on October 5th at 9:38, we want to make sure we wait a day or two for people to actually check those emails and either delete, report, or click. So with that, I'll just go ahead and put in the next Monday. All right, so now that I have a schedule in place and a name, I need to click Save over on the right. All right, campaign was successfully created. Now you can see we have a few more buttons than just Save, and that's because we have the schedule in place now. This is the launch button that you don't want to click until you don't have anything left to change. If you don't click this, then it just ignores the schedule. It will not go live. Send me a test email is very useful once you've added your templates. And force all emails now will help you with your pilots. We'll use both of those in a minute. So when I scroll down further under my schedule, I have landing page and email templates. Landing page by default will use the landing page that's associated with the email template that you're including down here. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and add templates. And let's say I want to add everything from my finance category. That's the one that I put together earlier. So I can just select the category and click Add Templates. If you aren't using a category, you can still search here, and it will show you our newest templates as well as ones that you've recently worked on in this Add Templates window. All right. Oh, I did not do that right. All right, Add Templates, and then category finance, and then I need to actually select it. Right. So now this template is down here, and it's going to use the landing page that I selected when I built the template, unless I do an overarching landing page here. So if I wanted to use a different one, then I have the ability to change this here. All right. So at this point, I can send myself a test email, and it'll go to the email address that I'm logged into. Go ahead and do that. Oh, got a noobs message. We'll see if that comes through. I'm going to go back to campaigns and click back into our pilot campaign. I'm going to check my inbox real quick. Okay, we won't spend time on that one, but it should send you a sample of the email that you have down below here. Let's see, the next thing that we need to do is identify who's going to be receiving this template during this schedule. So we have a sub-tab under campaign for targets. And this is where we specify who's included on the campaign. I'll click Add Targets from the sub-tab. And then I have the ability to do a bulk import right here. It's not as common, but if you haven't imported your targets yet, you can do that directly into the campaign. You have the option to do all users if you're not using groups or just would prefer to do that. You can select individuals and you can use groups. So I will just select these groups since that's what we've been using for this demo. Okay, I see a question here. Are there any templates that ask users to fill in their username and passwords on the landing page? The answer is yes. We have one for password. It's test your password strength, and it asks them to enter their password. Can point you to that template. So if they're going to test their password, well, you have to have the live one in here, but just search password under templates and you'll see the test your password template. All right. So back under the campaign, we have our targets now because we selected the groups, and you can see scheduled. This is when the system will send these out based on the schedule we have put in place under the details as long as we click launch. Now, let's assume that John Smith and Nick Olson were my testing buddies, and they're going to help me with this pilot. Instead of adhering to the schedule and clicking launch and waiting for that to roll out, I'm going to say, hey, John, hey, Nick, we're ready to do this thing today. I want you to tell me today, how does this email look to you? And tell me if you clicked on it and how many times. I'm going to use this force all emails now option so that they don't have to hang around all day, and I can tell them, precisely when to check. All right. So then it'll let me know it successfully sent emails to 2 targets. Right. And then under the logs, we can actually see the name of the email they received. So if you're using multiple email templates in a campaign, which you can, there's no limit on how many templates you include, then you'll see the name of the email that the campaign sent to each target and at what time they received it. All right. And that is really all there is to, well, there's one more thing I want to show you before I bring it up to, for questions. And that's on the main campaigns page. When you're doing your pilot, you might want to do another pilot quickly. And you can actually clone the campaign and it'll bring over most of the information here. So I can do a clone and confirm. And what that's going to do is create a copy for me. And when I scroll down, I can see my templates already carried over here. All I have to do is just toss in a schedule. All I have to do is that and save. And then I'm able to add my targets again. All right, and then I can force all emails now, again, in case there was something else I needed them to check. So it doesn't take very long in case they give you some feedback and you change something kind of quickly. It can be useful to clone the campaign and just add in the schedule and targets so you can launch another one. And with that, that's all I have to tell you about campaigns. Are there any questions about them? Let's see, I'm going to check in on the chat here. Let's see. We will send out the Ldap information after the call today, along with the whitelisting information and the support documentation. The next question is, do you have a best practice document for conducting the campaign? We do not want to let very many individuals know we are conducting this, so we do not dirty the data, but I can foresee some staff members getting upset when they are phished. Let's see. So let's take a look at that one for best practices. If it's an organization where you haven't done a phishing simulation before and you want to make sure that it's done in a positive manner, then you'll want to just look at the language of the templates you're using at first. So in that environment, you wouldn't want to use something where it looks like it's coming from the principal and it's urgent, because yeah, then they might be kind of a little upset because you're kind of touching on something where they're vulnerable. So the best practice is really to choose something that is helpful for them, something that they might actually get. So for teachers, maybe it's they're being invited to a conference and they need to be able to tell the difference between am I actually being invited to a conference or is this a phishing simulation? And the other thing that you really want to pay close attention to are the landing pages in that context. So for instance, if we go into templates and landing pages, there are some that don't even let them know they're being phished. For instance, this 404 error page, if they were to get an email and click on the link and get this message, they would probably just delete it and not really be sure of what happened. So it's not saying, hey, I'm phishing you, right? They don't know. So you do have the ability to go incognito. The other thing is you can use this in a positive manner. So if you want to teach people to forward them, then maybe use our forward animation landing page. I'm going to do a preview of this one and let you know. So it's just informational. It's not you took the bait. You don't have to use one of those that's a bit more aggressive. So the best practice for that would just, if you're not comfortable with the language and something before you sent it out, trust your gut and change it to where it's something that's valuable for the recipients. Next question, what would you need to whitelist? There's a domain that's associated with us sending the emails out that you'll need to whitelist, and we'll send that over. All right. And the next question, are there a limit on the number of campaigns you can run? The answer to that is no. There is no limit on the number of campaigns you can run. run as many as you like, especially with pilots. You know, don't hold yourself back. Yeah, Jason's correct here. All right. Any other questions about campaigns? Is there a way for the user to report the email? Yes, we have Find a Phish. It's a reporting tool that you can install in your Exchange console. I'll drag mine over to show you what that looks like. And in the documentation we send over today, we'll have documentation on how to install this and if your environment's compatible to install it. So you can modify the text here, as well as what they see when they report the email. To do that, it's over in the upper right underneath your email. You'll click Find a Phish, and this takes us to the settings for your Find a Phish reporter. Here's where you can change the text in that one I just showed you. It is required that you put in an email for the messages to be reported to. And when you click Publish to the right, you'll get these XML files that, depending on which of these you're using, you'll send to your Exchange admin to install that for everyone. I'll just click on one so you can see that. Yeah. All right. Any other questions about campaigns before we move on to reports? Okay. All right. So with reports, these are pretty straightforward. They're pretty much canned reports. So the most commonly used is campaigns. And there are other ways to get creative with these other reports and see some interesting data there as well. But campaigns is the most readily used because that's where we see what we know to look for. How many people did we include in the campaign? How many reported? If you have a reporter installed, how many were caught, and the percentage. So the campaigns reports will show you at a high level for all campaigns those bits of information. If I wanted to download this report, I can, using the download report over on the right. You'll just need to put in a name for it and click Generate Report. And then you can see over on the right my recent downloads. And when it finishes spinning, it'll be ready for me to download it to my local drive. It will also send you an email containing the report that you requested. The next thing you can do is you can dig into a deeper level in the report. So let's say I want to see more specifically into this pilot campaign, which I recommend you do when you're running your pilots. All right, so here we can see a more detailed breakdown of who was included in this campaign and what's their interaction with it. We can see which email they received and information on whether they clicked or not. So this is where, when you have a pilot, you have a test group, you know, tell Nick to click, tell John not to, and make sure that it matches up here. If you're using a data entry template like the password one that we touched on, and they go to type in data, then it will show up here. We do not store any text that they put in there whatsoever. We just capture the information that they indeed clicked into the text field. So we don't store anything they put there because we recognize, you know, we're kind of asking for some sensitive information. All right, and then last catch is a timestamp of when their most recent click was. So if there's multiple clicks, the last catch will tell you the most recent thing they clicked on. There's one further layer in this report, and that's the target themselves. So let's say I want to see everything on John Smith. He has never been caught, so there's no information here. but essentially this report would show me the dates of every single time he's been clicked. The type of click, was it a click, an attachment, or data entry, and the IP address associated with the source of that click. Let's see, and I forgot to mention on this last one, I can download the report there as well. Essentially, the reports start you at the highest level, and then you can dig into each level, and each one allows you to download a report over on the right. Okay, and that's really all there is to reports. Each of these just contain information formatted a little bit differently, but they all function the same. Landing pages. So that is everything I have for you guys out of the box. We have 5 more minutes. See, there's a few more questions rolling in. Is there no way for users of Google to report a phishing email? Yeah, presently the Find a Phish reporter does not install into like a Google account for email. And then the next question is, will you have access to the software for the remainder of the school year? I think that one's best answered by Jason.
Right, and I think that's a yes. I mean, we're buying the subscriptions for 1 year. Anything beyond that is going to depend on more funding from the legislature, which we'd love to be able to do. And I think probably on that note, I mean, it's worth talking about the bigger picture here. We started with the phishing training, so you can get a campaign out, see how your folks do, you know, sort of as a baseline. We're going to follow up with the other piece we bought, which is the awareness training, so that you might use those teaching modules through the year, and then follow up with other phishing campaigns to see how they do, you know, mid-year, later in the year. And ideally, we could gather some numbers from that to show everyone, but in particular the folks who gave us this money, you know, that we've had an impact on the security of your folks based on the training. So, you know, hopefully that down the road means they continue to invest in making an impact in this.
And then there's a question about the awareness piece availability. We're on track to have that available to you by the end of next week, and possibly sooner.
And I had emailed this morning folks that hadn't filled out that second form to let us know about your LMS. Folks in MediaPro are setting that up. If you're using their LMS, they have to configure that for you. So we're getting that set. Be sure you get that information in, and then we'll send you an email out when we're going to do this training for the awareness piece.
Thanks, Jason. Next question, do you recommend a template to use as a baseline? I recommend doing something in retail because that applies to all of us as humans. So something maybe with Amazon. Another one you might use is banking, like Bank of America, a spoof of something like that. I think that's a good baseline because you're using like a name everybody's familiar with, everybody interacts with, so it doesn't feel so personal when they get phished with something like retail or household name at the beginning. All right. Are there any other questions? Give you guys a couple more minutes. Just so you know, we will be sending out information for you all, the Ldap Sync information, the whitelisting information, support documentation, estimated times on the training piece, and you know, we'll point you to all of the resources that you need to get rolling here, and to also start thinking about, like Jason said, the bigger picture. What are we doing next after we do a campaign? So we'll make sure we send you this email with good resources to use as your own baseline for kind of starting this and getting rolling. We do have, I'm going to do this session again tomorrow if you'd like to join again. And then once we have the LMS piece rolling, for those of you who are using the MediaPro LMS, we'll meet again to dig into how to deliver the training piece there. So from my end, I just wanted to let you know that that's how my involvement will be with you all. I appreciate all of your time. I'm really excited that you're all going to be able to use this tool and to kick off some really great education at your various schools. So thank you, and have a great day. Jason, is there anything you want to add before we drop?
I would just say, you know, once we do get those recordings, this and the awareness piece, we'll find a place to gather those. So if you want to go back and take a look, you know, when you actually get around to launching the campaign, if you want to take a look at the video again and walk through it, we'll find a place where you can access those.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Go ahead and end the meeting.
Thank you, Raquel. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason. All right. Bye, everyone.